My name is Nancy Blochberger. I started volunteering at the Fort Smith Little Theater in 1991. I came to the theater in February of that year for auditions for the show Steel Magnolias. My husband and I had just sold a business and I was now only working part-time, so I had time on my hands. I had done a little theater in high school and had attended the Fort Smith Little Theater occasionally as a child with my parents, but I really didn't know much about the group. I came to offer to work on props, but they asked me to read a part on stage, and before I knew it, they announced I was cast in the role of Malin, and here I am still volunteering with them 31 years later. I quickly learned that while I enjoyed being on stage occasionally, I felt that I could make a larger contribution to the group by using my background in business and in marketing. In 1996, I offered to the board of directors to spearhead paving and lighting of our parking lot areas, as well as those that were owned by the Fort Smith Arts Center, who at that time was adjacent to our building. We were able to raise the money for that project without borrowing any funds. It was a wonderful first experience for me working on a construction improvement project and coordinating things with a board of directors. I realized very quickly that this all-volunteer group preferred to live within their means. There had been a mortgage on the first theater building on North O Street, but it was paid off and literally burned, and they chose not to ever borrow money again if it was ever going to be, if that was possible. In fact, when they built our current theater building on North 6th Street, which they moved into in 1986, they didn't have enough money to build it according to the original plans. The entire back half of the building was cut from construction. They built what they could afford at the time. As a result, there was only one toilet backstage and only a very small area for set construction and storage. Props and set pieces and costumes were stashed in garages and closets of volunteers all over town. So in 2005, I offered to the board that I would spearhead adding on to the back of our building. We called the capital campaign Complete the Plan, because we literally built the rest of the building that had been cut during the original construction 20 years before. We did tweak the interior space design, so we ended up with a green room kitchen, 2 additional restrooms backstage, large rooms for costumes and props, and wonderful storage for the set shop and construction areas. The project was completed in 2006, and blessedly, we never had to borrow a penny. A lot of the credit for that goes to our community. Our vendors donated or discounted materials, including cabinetry and paint, floor tiles, brick, concrete, lumber, toilets, and sinks. And a lot of our patrons contributed also, but you have to realize that FSLT is sort of a working man's cultural experience. So a lot of our patrons gave $25, $50, $100. We don't have a lot of really large donors like some cultural arts groups would. We are proud to receive these small gifts. Every dollar counts. And frankly, they were so pleased to be part of a capital campaign and to be a part of this big expansion. In our new costume storage room, we installed clothing racks that were used. They had come from old Walmart stores. And we bought shelving to house our props at an auction. Volunteers painted the concrete block walls and assembled all these shelves and racks, and it was really a crazy time with lots of sweat equity from lots of people. A few years later, in 2009, I was involved with the theater when we had the opportunity to buy the parking lot and grassy, undeveloped land on our block when the Fort Smith Arts Center decided to relocate. And once again, our community jumped in, and they very quickly allowed us to be able to finance the purchase of that land in full. In 2013, we went back to the community again. This time, we raised all the money needed to remodel our light booth, lobby, public restrooms, all the public areas in the front part of our facility. We thought that we'd probably have to get a line of credit to finance the construction, but gratefully our vendors and patrons donated enough to pay for the entire renovation. The original plan for the lobby expanded during construction when we realized that we could gain a lot of great extra storage over the two wings of the lobby. And we decided also to redo the box office to prepare for a future installation of a computer ticketing system we knew had to be coming in the next few years. We also refurbished our beloved symbol, the stained glass Harlequin man that was created for us in 1962, and we moved him to a stage of his own right in the center window of the lobby. This lobby renovation was pretty tricky. We had to work around our productions. So as a result, construction went on for about a year. It really was challenging. Before one show, we ripped out the light booth and got it put back together and the light and soundboards installed literally one day before the show opened. For another production, we ripped out the public restrooms and we were just about to resort to using job Johnnies for our patrons out front of the building, but miraculously, they got the toilets installed just in the nick of the time. We called that project Back to the Future because we were not only preparing our facility for future years to come, but we were also preserving our long and very colorful past. The lobby had framed cast photos that hung all over the walls, but boy, they were fading fast. We removed them as part of the remodeling and scanned them and posted them to our website and displayed them on new lobby TVs. That then led to the digitalizing all the show programs and cast photos that we could locate since our founding in 1947. We then started scanning every Spotlight newsletter going back about 10 years and adding all those to our website. We really are fortunate to have such a long history, but we're also lucky that so much information has now been preserved of that history for everyone's enjoyment. In 2018, I had just retired as the director of marketing for Cooper Clinic, a medical group in town, and I offered to the board of directors, since I had a little more time, that I could start researching online ticketing systems. We knew that online ticketing would be a game changer for our volunteers. We were a little fearful of how the conversion would be accepted by our patrons. But with a wonderful committee to help me, we narrowed down the ticketing vendors, made our selection, did the implementation, volunteer training, and all the patron communications by the end of the year. It was just in time for the sale of season tickets for season 2019. It was a very stressful time, but as it turned out, it went quite smoothly and really has been a godsend. As we started 2020, we had about 900 season ticket holders. The facility was now in really good shape. Life was pretty good at the Fort Smith Little Theater. And then in March, COVID hit. In accordance with the Arkansas restrictions for live indoor performances, which were very strict, we canceled one performance at a time. And then in the fall of 2020, we basically announced that we would just be closed until further notice. We really had no way of knowing how long we would have to be closed. The building was eerily silent. We remained closed and, of course, had no income for the next 18 months. But we still had ongoing utility and business costs. We didn't qualify for any government support programs because in all of those programs, you had to document your salary expense. And of course, since we were all volunteer, we didn't have any. Once again, our community stepped up to the plate. More than 90% of our season ticket patrons agreed to donate the value of their prepaid unused season tickets. And our show sponsors went ahead and paid for shows that were never performed. So 18 months later, in the fall of 2021, when restrictions were lifted and we could again perform, FSLT emerged from the pandemic and opened the doors when many community theaters across the country remained permanently closed. our frugality, living within our means, not taking on debt, being all volunteer without staff payroll expense, and the community support that we continued to enjoy gave us strength and financial health to reopen the doors. We reopened in the fall of 2021, and now we are celebrating our 75th anniversary season in 2022. Oh, what a celebration year it has been. We have researched our history extensively, reading and archiving newspaper articles dating back to 1947. We've read board minutes and newsletters and organized and preserved all of this at the Pebley Center at UAFS. We also published a commemorative booklet, which was truly a labor of love and hate. It was a monstrous project, but one that we're really proud of. And we've had lots of other activities all year long. In all of that research, there were several things that made me just laugh out loud, but there were also some core principles that I think are quite interesting and unique about our organization. For one thing, the Constitution that was drafted when the group was founded, it has had very few edits over 75 years. Whoever drafted it originally either had great wisdom or a crystal ball. Also, we have, from the beginning and all the way through now, 75 years later, operated solely with just volunteers. It definitely presents some challenges, but it also forces the group to involve more people in the creation of live theater, even those without theatrical experience or training. In other words, there is literally a job for anyone and everyone. It takes loads of people to answer box office phones and serve coffee at intermission and usher people to their seats and sweep the floors. The people on stage are actually just a small portion of the people involved in our organization. People have always been drawn to FSLT for different reasons. Some, of course, want to act and may have a theater background. But I'd say the majority first set foot in the building because they're looking for something. They're looking for new friends, or they're looking for something to do with their time, or a place just to be a part of. I always find it so interesting to ask what brought them through the door. I think it's also interesting that we don't really have fundraisers. Probably the only nonprofit group that operates like this. Ticket sales are our main source of income. But we literally go from one show to the other. There really isn't time or energy to do fundraisers as such. I'm not sure our patrons would be interested in gala balls or wine auctions, even if we offered them. It's just not what would be interesting to our typical patron base. So we sell program ads, and we solicit show sponsors from local businesses, and we ask for annual fund donations, and we watch every penny. And somehow it just seems to work. I'm sure some would probably say it's not much of a business plan, but it's worked for 75 years. And so I would say it's a plan that seems to work pretty darn well. So what's the next big project for me at the Fort Smith Little Theater? Well, I plan to keep on doing some of the jobs I've done for the last several years, publishing newsletters and helping with publicity and box office and the ticketing system. But I'm also training some wonderful younger volunteers to take on some of my responsibilities. It's really a pleasure to see them step up to the plate. I know fully well that they will make changes to the way things are done and improve the process that I've always followed. But I suspect that the core principles of our theater operation will remain the same. And hopefully that will take them to the day when someone will be planning a 100th anniversary. Oh, wouldn't that be grand?